Today we're going to be talking about the BKH Conditional Cash Transfer Program in Indonesia, and we're so fortunate to have an expert, Omri, here to tell us a little bit more about the program and the solution that we're proposing. Omri, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Andrea. So, I'm gonna explain a little bit about the background of the program. So, despite the sustained economic growth in Indonesia, we still have many problems in terms of Human Development Index in Indonesia. And to tackle that problem, the government launched it in 2007. So basically, the program will give the cash benefit to the very poor household with certain eligibility criteria. But then the household have to comply with certain conditionality. For example, they need to send their children to school. They need to do pre- and postnatal checkup for pregnant women, and etc. Initial impact evaluation in 2009, which is 2 years after the first program implementation, showed that although the program has significant impact in increasing the utilization of health services by the recipient household, it lacks of impact in terms of education. For example, there is no significant impact of a higher enrollment rate in junior secondary school, and the dropout rate is still the same for children. The program itself has a budget of $350 million. It's covered 3.2 million households across Indonesia, and given the size of the program, the importance of the program to break intergenerational poverty by investing in health education for the poor household, I think there is a pressure for the government to revisit the program and think about how to improve it.
So we've gone over a few of the potential, barriers to the success of this program, or reasons why it's not hitting its target outcomes, specifically in education. And we saw a real barrier in terms of secondary school enrollment, which was a prime goal of the program. And so the one we've chosen to focus on today, in terms of the solution, is linking payments to the students graduating. So the final outcome of their education, rather than just their enrollment evenly throughout. And we're going to go ahead and assume, in an ideal world, we'd like to increase the funding of the program so that we could keep the payments constant and then add a boost at graduation. But for the purposes of this analysis, since we haven't quite checked with the ministries yet, we're going to go ahead and assume that the budget stays constant for the program. With the policy reform in mind, we want to make sure that before we begin anything, we identify all of the stakeholders in this program and where they might stand with regards to their power and interest in the BKH program, and also where they would be on this spectrum of allies in our proposal. So whether they'd be for or against these reforms. So to start out, we're gonna go to the ministry level and talk about the ministries that have the most influence over this project.
At level, there are at least 3 stakeholders that we can identify. The first one is Bappenas, which is the budgeting ministry. Basically, they're the one who accepting the proposal of the budget from the ministry. And the second and the third one is the implementing ministry and agency. The first one is TNP2K, which is the team under the Vice President Office that designed the program, targeting the very poor household to receive the program, and also doing some monitoring and impact evaluation. And the third one is the Ministry of Social Affairs, which is the implementation agency of the program. Now, in terms of the power and interest matrix, we can put the central government as having a high power and also high interest. So this is central government. Because they're the one who designed the program and they want to achieve the better result of the program, which is the higher impact of the program for the very poor household. And in terms of the spectrum, whether they want to support or against the solution that we propose, it really depends on the 3 things. The first one is the technical correctness of the program itself, whether if we change the payment schedule to the very poor household, whether it can actually increase the enrollment of the children in junior secondary school. And the second one is about the political aspect. So they will support our program if they can align the other ministry at the central level to also support the program. And the third one is about the administrative feasibility of the program. The central government will also think whether the proposed solution can be implemented at the local level or not. And if we only change the payment schedule, then it most likely can be implemented at the local level. So I will put the position of the central government is here, which is basically supporting the program, but slightly like mildly supporting because they don't know yet whether the proposed solution will actually have an impact or not. And in order to gain more support from the central government, we can convince them using like actually the program can have a good impact to increase the enrollment at the junior secondary level of the very poor household children.
Facilitator is extremely important. So they said how where there were high success rates for the program, facilitators played a really key role. So I think they're very important to the program, but they're also low funded, overly stressed. They manage too many people, have to travel between many households. So I would argue that how much power they have in changing policy is low, while the interest is quite high. So I would place them out here. So beneficiaries value them a lot. They're the frontline workers, and how a program is implemented really impacts how they're perceived by beneficiaries. So which is what their main interest in is. So I would argue interest up here, power over there. And in terms of foreigner kids, so given our policy, total budget is remaining the same. I would argue it is quite possible that they would be slightly against us. Most people are happy with status quo. We are reducing their weekly payments, and their interests might align too much with beneficiaries. What we need to show them is that the outcome that they are also meant to be judged on is education, and this will allow education outcomes to improve and show them that this is in their best interest. Not just, well, this is the beneficiary's best interest.
Now that we've heard a little bit about the facilitators, let's turn to Cleo, who will explain to us a little bit more about the local government.
Thank you, Andrea. So basically in the local governments, there are two types of players. First, the district and sub-district heads, and then the village heads. Those two players are only different to the extent that the district and sub-district heads might have more impact on the program and more influence. So basically, I would put them with less interest, obviously, than the facilitator in the program, but more power. So I would say the sub-district and district head might be around here, whereas maybe the village heads might be more around here. Then, in the political spectrum, I think that as they have their main power on the program is their veto power. So if they think that the supply side is not ready, for instance, in their program, they can say, in their province, they can say that they don't want the program to be implemented. And the risk with our proposal is that it might be politically difficult to implement those lower payments at the beginning. So therefore, to convince them, we can suggest them to have a narrative around the promotion of education and use this for political purpose. So for instance, at the time of graduation, we could make them, leave space for them to be heroes and organizing celebrations with all the graduates of their district, and actually make them make this whole change politically profitable for them. So we believe that we can move them from this side of the quadrant to this side if we convince them with our political narrative.
It's a great idea about including the local government and celebrating the achievements of the graduates, and I definitely see opportunities to include facilitators in that celebration as well. And one other stakeholder that might be part of that process would be the service providers. So now let's turn it to Martin, who's going to tell us a little bit more about the service delivery.
Thanks, Andrea. I think that's a great idea. You see, the service providers are key to this program. They both provide a service, but also they have to register to prove that attendance in the conditions in education. Teachers have to show that students attended the classes, and in health services, the centers have to show that women did their checkups. So, but you know, in the design of the program, they didn't have that much additional means to provide those additional services. So overall, it's been a weight on them. I think increasing the graduation, giving a graduation premium will allow students to be more motivated. So service providers in education in particular might have some interest in getting that reform. Now, their power is pretty limited. They are not in the design of the program, they're just implementing it. So I think their power is limited, the interest is medium, so we can put them here. Now, with the reform, we can also move them from a slight opposition because of the lack of means to some support because of the additional motivation. So it will move them from here to here. Do you have a question, Seth?
Yes, Martin. Interesting that you put service providers that high. I thought they would be much lower. What are your thoughts?
You're right. Actually, their power is very limited. So let's put them down a notch.
We can't forget about the beneficiaries, the Indonesian households who were giving this cashing condition for them meeting certain education and health requirements. So to talk a little bit more about the beneficiaries, we're going to turn to Lily.
Now we are going to talk about the beneficiaries. We think that the beneficiaries have very low power in this spectrum, but they have very, very high interest in this program. So I'm going to put them here. This is our beneficiaries.
I have a question, Lily. What about through the electoral process?
I think it's fine that we put beneficiary here at this point. If they're really, really annoyed, they can express their feelings through the electoral process. And that will bring them the power high. We think that it will be as high as the village heads.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think also the beneficiaries will keep the local government accountable and the village heads in terms of the transparency of the distribution of the system. Because there's a lot of issues with social jealousy in some of these Indonesian towns, and so we want to make sure that it's very clear who's benefiting and why, and for the households that don't get it, they know what the requirements are. So now looking at our spectrum of allies, we know that regardless, the households are going to be on their side because they're getting something that they weren't getting before in this cash transfer. But as far as going from here to here, we actually think they're going to be a little bit slightly against us. Because prior to our proposed reform, they were getting full cash transfers here, and now they're getting a bit less and they have a couple of extra requirements. So we feel like they'll start out maybe around here, but that we can overcome that and get them on our side by perhaps a better marketing campaign of the importance of education and what they'll gain by participating in the program. And so we can move them a little bit over here.
And we can further improve this if we have additional budgets that we can improve the graduation budget in the end.
And also keeping these guys the same as they were before and offering them just the boost at graduation, which would further them probably even over here on the spectrum.